Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, it's a beautiful Thursday morning here in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. I'm Kayode Okikere.
Well, it's the Federal Capital Territory here. Good morning. I'm Maokwe Yusuf from Abuja.
I thought I was going to hear political capital, but hey.
Then I'll go to business capital.
Okay, well, the paper straight away, as you can see this morning, we already have Wale Fatade with us. He is former assistant managing editor, Next newspaper, and commissioning editor of the Conversation Africa. Thanks for joining us today, Mr.
Good morning, Mr. Makinde. Good morning, Mr. Ogikiolu.
Good morning.
And good morning, Madam Maokwe.
Well, I don't know. There are sports for choice as usual. Sports for choice as usual this morning. But maybe we should begin with the Guardian newspaper this morning. And the Guardian newspaper is talking about the Electoral Act amendments. Lawyers, others hail as Senate rejects Buhari's request. Good number of riders there. Senate gradually asserting its independence, says Adeborua. It's victory for democracy, our Kalu. Lawmakers should be commended for rising above being rubber-stamped. Ogbankwa declares, time not ripe for further amendment of Electoral Act. Pius insists, rejection in tune with demands of Nigerians, says CNPP. First of all, did you see this coming?
Well, you know, there are some things that are peculiarly Nigerian that you might not get any other place, for good, for bad. I mean, I'm still at a loss how you sign something into law, not up to a month. And, you know, I came out to tell us, I'm talking about president now, that you had a deal with the National Assembly members that you will send this part for amendment. You should have not signed it into law. So, and I thought sincerely that it was going to sail through. Because the difference between our senators or our National Assembly members, the legislators now, and the executive has been 6.5 dozen. They have been in bed for quite a long time. That I never saw this divorce or temporary separation coming. So
Temporary
there is
separation.
how do they say that in English? Money is still yet on creation day. So, but I think it's absurd. Something that has not been tested, is not up to 2 or 3 weeks old, and you just want to amend again.
But that's not the first time. The same thing happened with PIA.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, it's actually for amendment now. And it speaks at another level, the quality of advice available to our president. And I'm speaking of legal advice now. That if you had your reservation, don't sign. It's your right. You are constitutionally allowed to do that. So,
you know the irony here, Mr. Fatade?
Yes.
When it was first rejected, people said, you should have signed it and then called for an amendment. Now he did this.
No, the people who said that were those who are just politicians. They are not ordinary citizens like you and I. No, sincerely. Because in as much as I have my own reservation, specifically now with that part of the Electoral Act, but that's me. If the democracy might be messy, might be dirty, but it's still ruled by the majority. If that's what the majority wants, so be it. So it passed the 2 chambers of the National Assembly. So the president had the right of not signing. So let's hope. I was thinking they would have gone. I mean, they were going to use their own veto power, which never happened. So it just shows how we have turned governance into a comedy show. With due respect to serious comedians.
Well, the World Kidney Day. Why over 20 million Nigerians are living with kidney disease. That's on page 10. I'm wondering.
It's actually on the rise. And last year, we published an article on the World Hypertension Day by a consultant endocrinologist in UCH. And it was, I mean, he shared with us some scary statistics. Progressively, we are being on the rise with Nigerians coming down with kidney ailment. And one little connection that we fail to make is the ubiquitous manner or way we sell all this alcohol in sachet. It's everywhere.
You know, there was
Parks
a ban.
Everywhere.
There was a ban, at least. There was meant to be a ban. And just a few days after,
You see it everywhere. They are hawked in sachet. And they are so abysmally produced that nearly most of the ones that you see everywhere are not registered by NAFDA.
What is
just keep on popping this.
What is disturbing about this
Another thing, hold on please. Another thing we abuse is paracetamol. People just keep on popping, and these things weigh the kidney down.
Exactly. But you know, what is disturbing about this, perhaps in a way, by way of corroborating what you just said now, is that, well, I spoke with some nephrologists over the weekend, and they were talking about the fact that it's disturbing that younger people are more in this space now than ever before.
Alcohol is more pervasive among younger people. And I'm speaking of people under 30. Very, very disturbing. And we don't seem to tackle this. You know, its twin brother is the drug epidemic, which is no longer silent. It's huge and loud.
Oh dear. Well, let's turn our attention to the Nigerian Tribune now. The lead is on politics. And you see, APC convention, why Buhari removed Buni El-Rufai. Buhari North Central governors to meet with chairmanship aspirants to achieve consensus candidate. As APC officially unveils power sharing across zones, North Central gets chairman, Southwest National Secretary. It was quite an explosive conversation Governor Rufai had with Sean Kibaloye on politics yesterday, and some revelations. In fact, I realized that some people within the APC didn't actually know things that were playing out until yesterday when they heard the governor. How did that hit you, really?
No, it just shows that we have had, and we are still having, weak parties, political parties. And the impact of that on our democratic experience is there for all to see. I mean, I had this headline this morning on the radio station, and I said, wow, I like the way the Tribune headline writers had fun writing that. So the APC is now President Buhari. And it's correct, I'm not saying they lie, but it shows how things have gone bad. I could just imagine the days of Augustus Meredith and Desai Akinloye, the wonders of us in Ibadan called Babantu Taba. I mean, no president would have removed him. It's not going to happen. It was not going to happen.
Well, it's always been said that the president is sort of the anchor
for
the party.
We kind of anchor. The president ran under a party platform. But then you remember, I've always called the APC a special purpose vehicle.
I think that's some of them also agree.
Oh,
anyway.
It was set up solely to grab the presidency. And the exit of President Buhari from office should mark the end of APC. Now, the underlying story...
Mr. Fatadin, I mean, that's a prophecy of doom. I'm sure the
As I should mark, I didn't say might, should. We are going to see that.
I'm sure they beg to differ.
It's their right, and it's my own right too. And this has come out of my own experience of analyzing and reporting politics for about 3 decades in Nigeria. So I can say what I want to say. And I think it's going to happen. You know why it's going to happen? And I didn't catch Sheon's programs yesterday, or Sheon's program.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, so I'm not sure whether I touched on it. You know, the president left for the United Nations Environment Assembly in Nairobi, Kenya. And the itinerary then was I will move from there to London for his medical checks. The president came back solely to remove Mr. Buni. I don't know whether you know that. And when those who told me this, and those who know, those who should know, those who are part of it, I was flabbergasted. That's so, Mr. President had to come. There were 2 people you brought to your show. I think it was day before yesterday in the morning. 2 APC gentlemen that Malcolm interviewed in Abuja. You know that one of them was still claiming Mr. Buni was the chair, and I was like, excuse me, wake up from your dreamland. So that is what the president wanted, and you could see what the Kaduna governor said is what the president wanted, and it's so painful. We have said this over and over again, how much governance is actually going on now. It's particularly painful for me because I know Niger State, that the governor of Niger State, with the terrorism under his watch, still had this luxury of time to be going around partying or politicking. And when I said that, the colleague told me that, sir, he's a politician after all. And that's what we are seeing. So it shows that, but then, which one is which, as they will say? The PDP is not faring better.
In fact.
In my home state of Osun, they had 2, whether it's fake or genuine primaries.
What they call it now, parallel or perpendicular?
So who is the actual governorship candidate?
There's something you mentioned about the Second Republic chairman of the ruling party at the time that nobody could really. I've asked that question several times. Kade will remember. How come it would seem like the office holder seems to be superior to the chairman of the party, especially in this Fourth Republic?
Organically. No.
Even the PDP?
No, because the PDP has mutated from what you have in 99. This is not the PDP of the Alex Ekwemes of this world, the Solomon Lars of this world. So we now have a set of people that are the funders or the joiners. And the people still pay their party registration fee. I remember seeing that car with my grandfather. And you know, Unity Party started, UPN started as a Club 32 or whatever. So I remember my grandfather keeping his card, showing me how he paid those things, which he did during the AG time too. So where is their party membership card? Are they paying dues? Remember, it's political appointees that are funding parties now. The governor has certain amount.
Mr. Fatade, we have so many papers
yeah, let me just take this one. Very sad story, really, right in the 3 pictures you see. Bandits kill soldiers, policemen in Kebbi. Police parade 200 bandits in Kaduna. It's quite interesting you mentioned Niger, now Kebbi as well. You know, the governor is the head.
The deputy, I think if this at the same attack, the deputy governor actually escaped an attack.
Exactly, there was an attack on his life. So, I mean, it's a lot about security right now. Just a few days ago, we had the massacre of the vigilantes, over 60 of them. I mean, seeing that video was I mean, that was heart-wrenching for me. So page 25 of the Nigerian Tribune has more details. It's a big one. I will definitely be focusing on that one for you. A lot of other stories, but let's leave it there. Marwa.
Well, let's take a look at what the leadership has this morning, and they have this. Buni won't return as APC Caretaker Committee Chairman, attributed to the Governor of Kaduna State, El Rufai. You find details on page 4 of the paper. Says NEC will ratify his removal next week. President asked us to vacate court order stopping convention. It's also a quote there. Buni remains chairman. APC senators insist. That's on the front page as well. Bello inaugurates convention committee, releases zoning list. North Central retains chairman. Southwest gets secretary. So the zoning list was also released by the APC yesterday. So you find all the details on page 4 of the paper. Electoral Act Amendment. For once, that's how the leadership captures it. For once, 9th Senate rejects PMB's request. It's a page 8 read this morning. I know that our guest has already commented, you know, a great deal on that issue, so I won't stress him. I won't stretch you a little more on that. But look at this: ASUU strike. UTES has failed integrity test. Federal government insists. So that is still ongoing. I do not know if you'd like to say a word or two on that, what you make of this negotiation ongoing between ASUU and the federal government. Don't forget that the federal government has now set up another committee to take a look at the 2009 negotiation agreement. ASUU is kicking against that, but this is what the federal government is saying about this payment portal. They say go to IPPIS, and ASUU says no, we have UTAS. But federal government says UTAS has failed integrity test. What do you think? How should we get out of this quagmire?
It's up to all of us, the citizens now, to rise up and rescue the Nigerian university system from the grips of both ASUU and the federal government. Now, IPPIS is one of the greatest calamities that this government could have bequeathed to Nigerians. And a lot of people do not know what is happening. As a matter of fact, last week I was speaking with a professor, a friend of mine, who's been a professor for about almost a decade now, who told me that for about 6 months he's been collecting 21,000 naira. And I asked him that, are you paying any loan or deduction or whatever? He said no, that there are only 2 deductions that are supposed to be done on his salary. His taxes and his pension. And that's all. Go to University of Ibadan, go to University of Lagos, speak with professors.
Is that a fault of IPIS?
Yeah. In fact, there was a time a vice chancellor at land was actually being paid, was it 31 or 41,000 naira? There was a time in University of Ibadan, and the people, I don't know whether it's the budget office or AUC now can deny it, that lecturers were asked to contribute money to go and play with people at the IPPIS for them to be paid their actual pay. This is happening. I mean, I got family members, I got friends, I got relatives who are in the university system. IPPIS is bad. And so and unfortunately, ASUU has given up on the propaganda war. They are not focusing on this very well. Whether if they are not going to use UTAS, I don't know, I don't have any problem. But what about IPPIS is not working? Now you cannot, there's a danger now that people might not know again. You cannot go from University A to University B on sabbatical. Now, presently, because University B will now tell you that, look, we are not going to pay you. Because if you put your name on our payroll, that means when you get back to your university A, where you are working, you will not be paid again. These are the confusion in the system, and there's so much happening. And the citizenry, we are just folding our arms, watching this game going on. And I'm not sure it's the 2009 agreement they are renegotiating now. I think it's the 2019 one that was renegotiated. And so there's no fidelity, there's no sincerity or purpose on the part of the government on what they want to renegotiate. And it's so absurd and so sad that the current Minister of Education, when he was a columnist in Daily Trust, was pontificating on the same ASUU strike. Now the ball is in his court, he can't solve it. I'm not saying ASUU is without its fault, a plethora of them, but I think we just must rescue the university system from the grip of the federal government, who is just not interested in doing anything for the university.
Well, there's some news to share here. Page 14 has this story. Second Niger Bridge to be ready next month. That's attributed to the Chief of Staff of the President, Gambari. That's page 14 read there. We heard that he was on an inspection tour with the Minister of Works and Housing. And it looks like this is what he has to say from what he's seen. Second Niger Bridge to be ready next month. Your thoughts?
That would be wonderful. Kudos to this government if that is done. Though at another level, I wonder the kind of visit that you needed the Chief of Staff, the Works and Housing Minister, and the Labour Minister to go to see a bridge. That's very funny. It shows the lack of serious work being done at that level of governance for us. Only one person was enough. And then why can't they, I could even be a cameraman, with due respect to cameraman in the studio. Just show us what you see there, and then we can take decisions in our offices in Abuja. But then we need such a high-power delegation.
Well, let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
And flip to the Vanguard newspaper this morning that also has a political story as its lead. Intrigues as APC toes Buhari's line, zones chair to North Central. Stories on page 5 of the paper. Modu Sharif, Yari, others edged out. Senators Musa, Mustafa, others battle. Senator Adamu for party chair. CECPC in quandary over proposed INEC meeting, malls 2 options. So many, stories on the lead. There's so many riders right there. Of course, we've spoken a little about this. It's just lit.
Is Senator Adamu not in the current Senate, the former Nasarawa governor? That's Adamu Abdullahi. Is he still in the Senate now?
The story is on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning for more details. And of course, there is a picture story. Inauguration of APC Convention Committee is on the front page with a number of governors right there. Under that picture, Umahi deputy appeal sacked by lower court, insists judge erred. Story is on page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Seems this story is gathering momentum.
It's unfortunate that, and I think that has become my cliche now this morning, that the same judiciary the governor bashed on Tuesday is the same judiciary you are going to on Wednesday to get succor. And it's so sad. It shows that our leaders should learn to calm down the moment of the heat of things. It's a judgment. You have the right of appeal. Whatever might be the merits of your case, go to the same court. And I don't know, but I think we must commend the NBA for raising its voice against that attack. The normal thing in Nigeria is that when the judgment favors you, Nigeria judiciary is the best. When it does not favor you, they are the worst. They have taken bribes. They could have, and then petition the NJC, follow that up. The show of shame that the governor of Ebonyi put up on Tuesday was so bad, very bad.
Well, I guess that's that. Of course, the ASUU story is also on the front page. ASUU to Nigerians: don't allow elected leaders destroy varsities. ASUU yet to meet our demand on UTAS. Subscribe to FG. Both stories are on pages 10 and 8 of the paper today. Mr. and Mrs. very quickly seems to be digging from the past. Mr. is warning Mrs. very sternly. I know he's your boss. Must he touch you like that? If he tries a stunt like that again and I catch him, that day he'll know that my name is Bayo. a short word for bayonet.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, you have to go all out to protect what's yours, right?
And the back page has sports, and that's the Vanguard today.
Well, the dailies are taking different angles, different bites of this pie that Governor El-Rufai actually presented to Nigerians. And you see APCC, CPC chair, Buhari told Bello to take over, says El-Rufai. That's on the front page of a New Telegraph newspaper this morning. The writers, as you would expect, from that interview yesterday, talking about the support of 19 APC governors, President picked the national chairman from North Central. But let me get your thoughts on this one. Oh, by the way, the ASUU story also makes its way to the front page.
Yeah.
And,
we should keep on talking about
yeah,
it.
they actually meant to renegotiate the 2009 agreement.
Okay.
That was part of the mandate that was given to them. But see, this one under the big picture. Autumn to Benue people get lawful weapons, confront invaders. Says they can't continue to cry out for help as terror herdsmen again kill 5 farmers, injure 2 others in his village. Calls on FG to step up military operations in the zone. So Benue, Kebbi, Niger. I mean, these things never really went away.
No,
it's as though they just focused on 2023.
Yeah, and as I sat in the car before I came to the studio, I was just reading the treasurer of our resident association, reminding people of their security level. So we are buying guns at another level. And it's just that, because I don't know which residential area in any part of Nigeria now that doesn't have its own internal security arrangement apart from the one provided by the government, which might not be available. So I think that's what Mr. Autumn is asking his people to do, which is very sad. Remember, that's the Benue is the major food basket of Nigeria. Every time you are confronted with higher prices of onions, of yam tubers, the day I learned from my wife that a yam tuber was 1,000, I was alarmed.
I'm sure you respect yam more now.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And she was like, are you just, I said, wow, 1,000 for a yam tuber.
Wow, that's New Telegraph for you this morning, Mark.
I have to chuckle at that. You just knew, you just found out how much a tuber of yam cost. Oh well, take a look at what Daily Trust has on the front page this morning. As Senate rejects Buhari's request, Amechi, Malami, Ingige, others in tight corner. So this will be the consequence of the Senate refusing to amend the Electoral Act as requested by the President. Mandated to resign before party primaries, lawmakers violate understanding with President. That's attributed to carry no time frame for appointees to resign. Attributed to a senior advocate of Nigeria. So it looks like there might still be room, maybe wiggle room there for the appointees. We don't know. Page 5 might give you a little more detail to that. They also have this political story. Buhari gave us clear directive to remove Buni, attributed to El-Rufai. He has not been removed, says Umahi. So still conflicting signals there. Page 14 will give you all of the details. And what is happening in Kebbi? Witness say bandits on 200 bikes kill 13 soldiers, 5 cops in Kebbi. Don't forget that just, I think it was yesterday, there was also the news that about 63 vigilantes, 63 people were murdered by these same bandits. So there are big questions as to what exactly is going on in Kebbi State. Page 4 will give you details. Federal government bans foreigners from buying produce directly from farmers. Is that a good policy? Page 24 will give you more directive. But I want you to take a look, and I want you to comment on this, our guest. Ukraine war, Western sanctions taking toll on us, Nigerian students in Russia. It's a page 5 read. But these are some of the effects of what will happen. Right now, we know that almost all the countries of the world, maybe apart from the major powers, China, even India, are trying to isolate Russia. And it's going to certainly take an effect on, take its toll on the people of Russia. Nigerians, our students are there, and it looks like they are also feeling the effect. Should we be asking our students there to come home as well?
I have a personal experience of that, because I got a friend who has got children in Ukraine, and speaking with her made my heart, tore my heart to pieces. As the last time I spoke with her, one has escaped to Hungary, the other one was still caught up there. And she shared with me in tears how the one in Hungary said, "Mommy, why must I come? That will I be able to continue my studies in Nigeria?" And she had to use her motherly instinct, asking him that, "Just come. Whatever happens later, we can sort it out." I think we might not really understand the level of pain and agony, trauma that parents are going through. I think we have close to about 5,000 Nigerians schooling in Ukraine. And most especially, nearly all of them are in medicine and engineering, which are very popular and quite prestigious in that country. It's a way you can use to get into main Western Europe. And I think it's good enough that our government is making efforts to bring them back. We have not adequately captured the horrific stories coming from Ukraine from our students. And I hope we are not sitting here pontificating that why are their children in Ukraine? Well, until you have a child seeking admission to university in Nigeria, you will not know the labyrinth or the intricacies it involves.
Nigerian News Direct has as its lead, again, it will look like some excerpts from the interview we've referenced severally, alleged candidate in position, 4 notable APC governors to the camp. Find that story on page 3.
Hopefully the party will take them to court.
There must be level playing field for all contestants. Of course, according to official, party must avoid repeating political mistake of PDP. Ascribed to stakeholders. Buhari, 19 governors behind removal of Buni. That's ascribed to El Rufai, governor of Kaduna State. So much has been said about that. Right above the nameplate, fuel scarcity. Nigeria now has 1.9 billion liters of petrol. That's ascribed to the minister. Are you comforted?
Well, I bought for 165 naira yesterday for the first time in about 4 weeks. So maybe things are easing up. I bought 200, I bought 205, I bought 210, I bought 190. So yesterday I bought 165.
Only you.
Only me. So maybe things are actually easing up. Using my own experience as the index case now.
Well, there is this very displeasing one on the front page, depressing if you might add, because we chatted about it yesterday. Slain BRT passenger. Lagos will not condone purveyors of evil intentions over incident. That's ascribed to the governor. I don't know what you make of this story.
I think I want to go with the comment of the one we used to call Big Sam those days, Ebonyi as an advocate. I think the Lagos State government should not be the one that will investigate this case. I don't know what we have in our laws, but I think at a level, Lagos State government is a party because it's actually the operator of BRT. So there is so much tension, and it left me shattered as a parent that a government operated transport system could be at the vagaries of ritualists or murderers or rapists like this. I can't wrap my head around it. And I'm scared that I got children out there. What because of them? Well, I mean, I should not be the one that will drive my children everywhere they want to go. No. But it shows how bad, how sad things have become in our society. And it's up to all of us to take this very serious. There's something somebody said, that how many more have been killed like that we never heard of. And I think that's what should be worrying us. Thank God Bamishe's case at certain level is becoming the smoking gun now, that is forcing all of us to look into this. But how many more have gone silently?
And I think that's a question that lingers for a lot of people.
And I can't shake that off my mind as a parent.
Absolutely. You know, this investigation is meant to be done by the police, as it were, so not Lagos State government. Yeah. So at least we can expect that things are done right, level, especially with the attention that is on it right now. Well, Daily Independent is next. We'll just wrap up with this one. Daily Independent has, of course, how 5 APC governors staged coup against Buni. Yobe Governor Kwano Doede's name's missing in convention committee list, and there's a lot more, really. But this might actually shock a lot of people. Apparently, there was a fire at a petrol station in the Mushin area of Lagos yesterday, and I'm just imagining this is, I don't know if it's petrol or diesel, whatever the case is, these are very expensive commodities right now.
Yeah, a building next to it was completely razed down.
Oh dear. I was going to say, because I think I know the area. It's deeply residential area, even though it's along the major highway.
Yeah.
And the questions about, siting of filling stations, certain areas, and all of that. But at least we hope that this has been put under control. I'll just take one more. I'm spoiled for choice now. Let me see. I didn't see this coming. You know what? I'll just take this one. FG bans direct sales of farm produce to foreigners. This might not have its implication for a lot of people, but if you're in that space, especially with the recent trends, then you know how this feels. I'll just leave it there for Daily Independent because of our time this morning.
It's definitely something concerning, especially when you recognize that, directly selling, most of the time we're supposed to add value to it.
I never knew that was actually happening. It's a security issue. Yeah. Food security, and it's the ultimate form of security. Yeah. I mean, in Tunisia yesterday, I think I saw that is it the PM, Prime Minister or whatever, talking about people hoarding wheat and semolina, that the government will crack down on them because they import that from Russia and Ukraine, and because of the war they're unable to. And wheat and semolina are major staples in Tunisia. So food security is very serious. I never knew, and I'm serious, that people actually, foreigners, buy directly. That's dangerous.
In broad daylight, as they say.
Wale Fatade is commissioning editor of The Conversation Africa. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We're back after now to take on the first issue for the day. One of them is most certainly being talked about already. Stay with us.
It's the midweek plenary session in the Senate, and the federal lawmakers have just commenced the process of amending the 2022 Electoral Act. The Senate has taken this step 2 days after the Federal High Court in Abuja had restrained the National Assembly from making any amendment to the Act. This move causes mixed reaction in the Senate. After the Senate leader, Senator Yahya Abdullahi, gave the lead debate for the second reading of the bill, senators kicked against it.
Anywhere else in the world where democracy is properly practiced, like in Nigeria, we don't need to be told that if we want to run for office and we are appointed into an office, that we have to resign. That is a sine qua non that we don't even need to debate. Yet, here we are today in Nigeria, and people think that they can sit in an office and contest an election.
Amidst opposition, the Deputy Senate President argues for the amendment to be considered.
That no political party shall seek to disqualify anybody by importing into the process a provision for qualification or disqualification not otherwise provided for in the Constitution. It is there at the beginning. I believe that's section 84, section 84(2). Mr. President, Mr. President, I therefore rise to support the motion as moved by the Senate leader, that we allow this very bill to go to second reading.
And when the President of the Senate puts the bill to vote,
that this bill be now read a second time. Say aye. Those against say nay. No, I'm not putting the question again because I put the question, there was an aye and there were nays, and I said the nays had it.
this vote may have effectively put an end to President Buhari's plan to review Section 84, subsection 12 of the Act, as the House of Representatives is yet to consider the bill.
Well, that was what transpired on the floor of the Senate yesterday. Do not forget that the Senate initially had said they were going to ignore a court order which was trying to prevent them from considering that particular section. They said that the three arms of government are separate and different in their functions, and that the judiciary could not interfere in their primary assignment of lawmaking. But that was what happened when they tried to amend it on the floor of the Senate yesterday. It was roundly rejected. Do not forget again that the president, while putting pen to paper, had asked members of the National Assembly, said, look, I'm going to sign this, but he thinks that Section 84, subsection 12 particularly, is a defect on the newly signed Electoral Act, and was asking that it be amended. There have been mixed reactions to that, but you did see that he sent it back, and that was what came out of it. We have a few guests to help us, dissect what went down on the floor, if they also thought that the legislators were in their right. Were in the right in terms of the arguments that went on the floor. They have no power over the votes. What it is what it is. But this morning, we have with us Mr. Dauda Arioshu, who is an associate professor in the Faculty of Law, University of Ilorin. He joins us via Zoom from Ilorin in Kwara State. Sir, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And I also have here in our studios with us Mr. Silas Onu, who is a legal practitioner, and he is also a member of the People's Democratic Party. You're welcome to Sunrise Elite this morning.
Thank you, Margaret.
I'm going to start with you, because I was here, and I still remember the time when the president signed that Electoral Act. I think it was it 21 minutes past, or 25 minutes, it was on the 25th of February, and it was at exactly 25 minutes past noon when he put pen to paper. We're monitoring what was going on. Wow. And the president read a fine speech, praising and lauding this Electoral Act, but he minced no words when it came to Section 84. He called it a fundamental flaw because he said it negated the Constitution, was not in tandem with the Constitution, as it was discriminatory. I do not know what you made of it, but when he signed it, it would seem that there was a gentlemanly agreement, because the president himself had come under intense and immense pressure to sign. Would remind us that, Mr. President, you said in January that if we amended this part, you will put pen to paper, the initial part which had caused problems, direct and indirect primaries. And they put all the parts he asked for. So it looked like, I'm going to sign this, but this is my observation, and I expect that you people will do the right thing. This is what has come out of it now. Do you think that this is going to break trust between the executive and the legislature?
Well, thank you very much, Margaret. I think that the legislature have done their job. The president ought to simply do his job on the 25th of February and not delve into judicial functions. He had attempted to interpret Section 84.12 by saying that it infringed on the right of those political appointees, which is improper. If you don't want to sign a piece of legislation, don't sign it. If you want to sign it, don't start giving conditions. It is not in the place of the legislator to delete sections that have been passed. They can amend a law that have been duly passed, but they cannot start deleting. Now, the court can delete by declaring sections null and void, being in contradiction or contravention to the Constitution. So if you feel your rights has been infringed by the provision of Section 84.12, the proper thing to do is to approach the Federal High Court and then show them that that provision is inconsistent with one of your rights that is already enshrined in the Constitution. You must show that that right protects your right to hold political office.
But this is not the first time we've seen it. I mean, this is not the, even in this administration, it's not the first time we've seen it. With the petroleum industry bill,
yes,
when the president was going to put pen to paper, there were certain areas that he was uncomfortable with. There were certain areas he still thought needed amending. And in fact, when people were talking about his sincerity or otherwise in signing the Electoral Act, let's not forget that it's been before him at least 5 times or so, before he eventually signed it the 6th time he came before him. People cited examples of how the PIB went to him, he signed, and then asked for an amendment, which was granted. So it was not new that this was happening, and it would seem that it was a gentleman's agreement to at least get this process going.
You see, the Electoral Act is much more, for me, much more special and much more important than the PIB. PIB is sector-specific, right? But the Electoral Act affects everybody. And there are more interests in the Electoral Act than there are for the petroleum industry bill. And because he did it with the petroleum industry bill and the National Assembly played along, doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right. You cannot be asking the National Assembly to delete a provision. What they did yesterday was not an attempt to delete. Was an attempt to amend the law they just made. They have not even been tested anywhere. You just made a law, allow it to be tested. Let's see whether it is practicable first. If it is not practicable and it creates problem, then you now have a reason for amending it. The only reason they have for amending this is that the president said it should be amended. The president is just a person. The law is not for the president or for his appointees. The law is for all of Nigerians. So there are people at a state level that this law will impact on. There are people at the federal level that it will impact on. Any of them that feel the law offends their rights can approach the Federal High Court. And if the court agree with them, that law will be declared, that section will be declared null and void. It will become inapplicable. So there is no need for the controversy the president sparked on the day he signed the Electoral Act into law. There is no need, absolutely. In fact, he has helped to advertise the need to oppose his request. Because the moment he made that statement, someone like me started a campaign against the removal of the section. I made a poster and published, said there is no right to hold in public office. Nobody has a right to be appointed into public office. It's a privilege. So if you are appointed and you want to serve the people, serve the people. If you want to now join partisan politics, resign when you want to contest. The law didn't use the word you must resign, but by implication, you cannot be voted for and you cannot vote in party congresses or convention. Meaning if you want to vote or you want to be voted for, you simply have to relinquish that public office. Now, it is for people who are appointed. It doesn't affect elected officials. It is only people who are appointed. So you don't expect the president, his vice governor, his deputy, members of the National Assembly to be resigning whenever election is about to be conducted and they want to participate in primaries. Those concerned or those affected are people like ministers, board members, because there's no clear definition of political appointees. But if you go to the dictionary, you will see it. It is someone who was not elected, who has been appointed. Even board members are all political appointees.
From what you're saying, it certainly has far-reaching implications. So let me ask our guest who joined us via Zoom, Mr. Ariosho, what you make of this. This certainly has far-reaching implications, and the inability of the Senate first, because we don't even know, I don't think it's been considered on the floor of the House. It has not even been announced on the floor of the House. Talk more, I don't think it's gone up for first reading, that's what I mean. But this is what has happened at the first reading of this bill on the floor of the Senate. What is your reading first? When the president, raised his own objections, and now that the lawmakers have voted against it, what do you read from this?
Thank you very much. You see, there is no law that is 100% perfect. And once a law has been passed, and the president has given his assent to a particular law or bill passed by the National Assembly, at least let the law be tested first. If the law has not been tested, and you are talking about say deleting some parts of the law, let the law be tested first. And I think even if there is defect in the law, there are procedures for everything. The court is there. Approach the court for proper thing to be done. You can ask the court to void some part of the law. You can ask the court to strike down some portions or provisions of the law. But this law itself has not been tested. Let us test this law and see how far we go about it. But unfortunately, the National Assembly that has gone through this rigor of passing this law is now saying that you want to delete some part of the law. No, let the law be tested first. And at any rate, if all what you want is that some portions of the law are not favorable to you, the best thing for you to do is to approach the court. You have not approached the court. You are doing what the judiciary is supposed to do. You cannot do it on your own. You can't do it on your own. But the most important thing is that proper thing must be done. Proper procedure must be followed. If proper procedure is not followed, the end result is that you still have to go back to the court. Because some part of the National Assembly will still feel that, no, what you have done is wrong. Let us still approach the court for the court to set aside whatever decision you must have made. So why can't we just wait first, let the law be tested? If the law is not good for you or you feel that it's not in your favor, yes, you approach the court to do the needful. It's not just a matter of you have passed this law and some part of it is not favorable to you after the president has already given his assent to the law. So my own view is that we should wait and test this law first. Let us see how it will work. And if you feel that you are not comfortable with it, approach the court. That's simple and straightforward. Thank you.
Let me follow up on that, and perhaps this is for both of you, but I'll start with Mr. Ariosu, really. Because, I mean, I think both of you seem to agree that this is not the appropriate way to go about it, but it begs the question. Even this Electoral Act that we have now, at some point it was an Electoral Act Amendment Bill. I mean, the amendment process was not first done through going to court and then testing it and then coming to amend it. You know, this was presented on the floor of the House, you know, by lawmakers, as it were. And there are different ways to amend laws. There are executive bills, individual bills, and all of that. So is it unconstitutional for the president, which in this case will not be an executive bill, to ask for an amendment? Because, I mean, except if I'm wrong, I've looked around, and that is allowed as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, of course, the president himself can ask for amendment of the law, and the proper procedure must be followed before the law can be amended. But what I am saying is that this is a law that has just been, not been passed. The next general election is coming up next year. Let this law be tested first. Because at the end of the day, if you want to amend the law where it has not been tested, at the end of the day, what you want to amend may eventually turn out to be that you are not supposed to amend that law. Because, like I said from the beginning, that there is no law that is perfect. There is no law. All we have to do is to make it work. Make it work, unless the law
what the president did
absolutely bad.
So what the president did, let's just be clear, is it unconstitutional or not?
No, of course, it's constitutional. Of course, he can do that.
So his right to ask for an amendment then?
Yes, he can ask for an amendment. He can ask for it.
I just wanted to clear that out. So this is just more of a perspective thing, saying that, it's not right. It's not a legal or constitutional issue that you're pointing out here. And by the way, that's the provision that is being talked about. But we'll get into that one. But just to get the definition, because I see Mr. Onu has tried to define who a political appointee is. But really, is there a clear-cut definition? Because the Electoral Act does not define who a political appointee is, as it were. And this is for Mr. Rios before I come to Mr. Onu. I just want to get your opinion. So when you bring political and appointee together, is an appointment to a political position, as it were? And some will tell you, even electing a governor is some sort of appointment. So do you think there will be issues regarding who a political appointee is or who a political appointee is not, based on this new law? Just quickly, before I take it to Abuja now.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, political appointees, there will be a need to distinguish between ordinary political appointees and when you have people elected to public offices. Yes, on the issue of political appointees, once you are appointed to a political office, it behoves on you to uphold the Constitution and all laws of the Federation. And of course, if you are a political appointee and you want to contest for an election, I think it's a very good law when you first resign your appointment before you contest for another political position. And I think I know there are provisions in the Constitution that when you want to contest for a particular post, you have to resign your appointment before you. Although I think in the past there are judicial authorities to the effect that talking about right to freedom of association, that you do not have to resign your appointment if you are a political appointee and you want to contest for an election. But I think it's a good law for a political appointee to first resign his appointment before venturing into another political position. So you can't hold a particular political appointment and you still want to apply for another political appointment, probably which is higher in degree than the one you are already holding. So resign from that one and contest for the other you want to contest for.
Well, that raises another question, Mr. Rioshi. Let me ask Mr. Ono this question. I mean, you've tried to define, as my colleague has said, but then if you look at the provision again, as we saw it on the screen earlier, it says no political appointee at any level shall be voting delegate or be voted for at the convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of candidates for any election. This provision, Mr. Ono, does not give a timeline when it will be effective. So it would seem like there is some vagueness of sorts in that regard as well. When it comes to operationalizing it, at what point then does this politician who is an appointee and is aspiring to be elected into office have to resign his office or leave the current appointment to go, vie for an elective post?
Thank you very much. There are three issues, but I will start from the last one now. I don't think there is vagueness regarding the timeline for such a person to resign, in that different political parties have different timetable for their activities. So once it is clear that political appointees cannot vote by this provision, they cannot vote, they can only be voted for, right? Now, if by party constitution, they are given the right to vote in a congress or convention in which they are participating as aspirants, they can vote. Now, regarding when they can quit office, since there is no timeline, you can quit office a day to the scheduled Congress or convention. You can quit office a day to it. What is more important is that on the day the Congress is holding, you no longer are holding that public office as an appointee. on that day. So you must leave office before that day. It can be a day before it, it can be a month before it, it can be 3 months before it. The person who has that interest will have to decide for himself or herself, should I resign a day before? Will that allow me participate fully in the processes leading up to the Congress or convention? Because if you don't resign, I do not know if you can pick up nomination form as a candidate and begin to campaign. But the operational word in this section is that you will not be voting and you will not be voted for in the Congress or convention.
Okay,
I do not think the section forbids you from campaigning.
Well, you have already begun, Mr. Onu.
Nomination form.
Mr. Onu, you have already begun to look at some of the issues that may arise. I mean, you've just asked the question now. When does he pick up? Just a second. When does he pick up the nomination form? Is it before or after, you know, he has left office? That's one issue. You may also want to speak to this. In the event that, okay, he goes in for this convention and he does not get the desired reason for which he resigned, what happens? Does he go back to the appointment, or is he reappointed, or what happens?
The appointment is not a birthright. The office was not created with his name on it. Once he resigns, he's out. If the president who appointed him or the governor who appointed him finds him fit to return, they can bring him back. And you see, there is no law that cannot be circumvented. What this law requires is that you leave office before, on the Congress Day, the day that election will be held. That is the day your right is determined to vote or not to vote, on that day. So you can resign a day before the Congress. If you lose in the Congress, the president may reappoint you. That is his prerogative. The governor may reappoint you. That is his prerogative. And that takes us to the definition of who a political appointee is. My definition, which is straightforward, is that a political appointee is anybody who is appointed by an elected officer. An elected officer being the president and his vice, the governor and his deputy, members of the National Assembly, members of the state houses of assembly, local government chairmen, and their executive members or councillors. Because you go down to the local government, you find that even councillors have PA, SA, and all of that. So once a councillor makes you SA and you want to run for councillor too in your ward, you have to resign.
Well, interestingly, Mr. Onu,
so
that's a definition.
Anybody who is appointed by a political, an elected official is a political appointee.
Let me ask
you know, incidentally...
Switch gears now to another topic. Let me ask you quickly,
Go ahead,
Kennedy, whether you agree with the president's concerns. He talked about this provision has introduced some qualification or disenfranchises those. I'm trying to find the exact words he used now. I think it was in part 7 of the speech which he gave. He says Section 8412 constitutes a disenfranchisement of 7 political office holders from voting or being voted for at conventions or congresses of any political party for the nomination of candidates for any election in cases where it holds earlier than 30 days to the national election. He goes on to read what the section says, and it says this provision has introduced qualification and disqualification criteria that ultra-virus the Constitution by way of importing blanket restriction and disqualification to 7 political office holders, of which they are constitutionally accorded protection. And he says the practical application of Section 8412 will, if assented to by operation of law, subject 7 political officers to inhibitions and restrictions referred to under Section 40 and 42 of the 1999 Constitution. And he goes on to explain what he means. He says, you're placing a bigger burden on them than the Constitution itself places are already on political office holders. Do you agree with that?
I do not agree with that. The president has made himself a judge in this matter. Like I said, if anyone feels his right has been infringed, the person should approach the court for interpretation of that section. Now, there is nothing disqualifying anybody in section 8412. What you may call it is that there is a condition precedent.
Okay.
There's a condition precedent for participating in party congresses and by political appointees.
So you didn't agree with his reading and his interpretation?
I do not agree.
Of that?
Now, if you are appointed into public office, it is intended that you serve the people, not go there and be an extension of a political party.
Okay. Let's take a break at this point, and we'll come back and switch gears to the ruling that came out from Ebonyi yesterday. Please stay with us.
Abakaliki, the Ebonyi state capital, comes alive as thousands of APC supporters troop out in their numbers to show support for the Ebonyi state governor David Umahi following Tuesday's Abuja High Court judgment removing him and his deputy from office. The Solidarity Match at the popular Udensi roundabout in the state capital brings together party faithful from across the state. The Deputy Governor, Kelechi Igwe, addresses the crowd, restating the people's support for the Governor Umahi-led administration.
They consider the announcement some of them had yesterday as a travesty, which must be corrected. To me that this is a distraction that should just be ignored. That by your nature and your person, they know you will not be interested in responding to what is happening, that they have come to give you assurance that comrade, come shine, as your subjects, they are with you. Comrade, come shine, morning, afternoon, and night.
Addressing his supporters, Governor Umahi urges them to remain peaceful, warning the opposition PDP against any unlawful activity while expressing confidence in the Nigerian judiciary.
This is another level. You will not be angry about the judgment. Say thank you to PDP. It is a joke that has been carried very far. And today we will say to PDP in Ebonyi State, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Anybody that goes against the law of Ebonyi State, we get it very hot from today. I'm just here to say two things to you. One is to be very peaceful. Number two is to assure you that we have still very serious confidence in the judiciary.
With the governor and his deputy approaching the appeal court with the aim of reversing the judgment of the Federal High Court, the coming days promise a display of legal fireworks by parties in the case.
Well, we're still on the matter of the Electoral Act, which the president had asked the members of the National Assembly to re-amend. It didn't come back amended. And we're also taking on the issue in Ebonyi State, where a federal high court here in Abuja sacked the governor of Ebonyi based on Section 221 of the Constitution. Well, he's now filed an appeal. That was the rally which held in the state yesterday. His supporters showing their displeasure over what was happening, and he reassuring the supporters. We still have with us here in our studios Mr. Silas Onu, who is a legal practitioner. He happens also to be from Ebonyi State, and Mr. Dauda Arioshu, who is an associate professor, Faculty of Law, University of Ilorin, joining us via Zoom. Some people will say it was like a bolt out of the blues Mr. Rioshu, I do not know what you made of that judgment which came from Justice Ian Ekwo, nullifying, it would seem, the votes cast, or will I say, not nullifying, saying that the PDP owns the votes and as such retains the votes, and as such when the governor was moving or defecting to the APC, he could not have gone as governor because that position rightfully belongs to the PDP. What was your reading of that?
Well, thank you very much. You see, although the case is still subsidized, because I learned that Umahi has appealed the judgment, but we can still pass our comments and analyze the judgment and the implications of the judgment. Well, as far as the court is concerned, judgment has been rendered, and any aggrieved party can go on appeal, which I believe Umahi has done. But looking critically to the judgment and effects, there are, in law, there's what we call precedent, judicial precedents. And when there are precedents in respect of a particular matter, the precedents must be followed. I think similar issues have arisen in the past. And we know what the Supreme Court said in respect of the similar issues that has arisen even before the Supreme Court. When, yes, it is true that people contest on the basis of a political party. And it is the political party that sponsors you. But at the end of the day, who was declared by INEC? It's not the political party. It's not the political party, but the candidates at the election. So if His Lordship has heard that to the effect that it is the political party that sponsored the ex-governor, and that he ceases to be in office because of his defection, he and his deputy and the other members of the State House of Assembly. But the issue is, does the court has that power? Yes, we know the case of Rotimi Amechi, but that position of the court has been overruled, and I think the present position now is that electors, voters voted for the candidates, because it's the candidate that will be declared as the winner of the election and not the political party. But since it's a judgment of the courts, I don't think what we learned that the ex-governor did or what he uttered to the judge is appropriate. It's not appropriate at all. Yes, he knows the proper thing to do, and that's what he has done. I learned that he has been apologizing when, but what he has done it. Well, no, the judges are human beings. And, well, of course, they are prone, they can make their judgment, and it's not that their judgment is the final. So he has the right to appeal. So he has done, that's what he's supposed to do. But honestly, it is not the political party that was declared as the winner of the election, but Umahi. So, I'm sorry. So, at any rate, if it is the candidate that was declared, and you know there is a freedom of association. If you have gone through the case, like I said, you have a similar issue that has arisen before the Supreme Court. The case of Atiku Abubakar, it's handy, and the Supreme Court said that no, you have right to freedom of association. You can defect. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong about your defection. If you defect from one political party to another political party, it doesn't mean that you have lost whatever benefits you have gained from that political party that has taken you to another political party. No, you work for it and you end it. You, the electors voted, even though it is the political party that sponsored you. But that doesn't mean that it is the political party that was declared as the winner of the election. It is the candidate himself that was declared. So if it is the candidate that was declared and he has the right, to leave that political party to another political party, which he has done. He has left PDP for APC. And he has the right to do that.
If you can hear me, Mr. ASUU, let me come in here, because we just came off the back of a conversation we had about, political appointees or office holders resigning before they either vie for an election or votes in party election, that is. And I think, this is not constitutional, and I think you agree that it's not quite provided for. That's why, in fact, the president thinks it's unconstitutional, let me just say, to stop them from doing that. But essentially, this was meant to cure an ill, as it were, eating your cake and having it, and some of the ills we have seen essentially. So this was more like a moral thing, putting that in the Electoral Act. So we came off the back of our conversation onto this one, and it's been said here and there that the law is not quite clear as to what happens to a governor, a deputy, and the rest when they move to another party. But the section of the Constitution that the judge relied on, 221, that says no association other than a political party shall canvass for votes for any candidate at any election or contribute to the funds of any political party or to the election expenses of any candidate at an election. And the thinking is, if you canvass for something, then you can only be the one to get that thing, as it were, and have the right to it. And that's the thinking, as it were. You ask for something, so I ask you for something. You give me, and I have a right to say it is mine, not another person's, and since I asked for it. So adding the conversation we had about the moral issue around political appointees seeking office or wanting to vote and still holding that office, and then this section of the Constitution as well, would you still fault that judgment?
Yes, of course. Because if you look at that section as other sections of the law, they cannot really override the provision of Section 40 of the Constitution, which gives every citizen rights to freedom of association. So, despite those provisions, the provision of the fundamental human rights will have overriding effect on all those sections.
So, do you agree then that Section 8412 of the Electoral Act also overrides, or at least infringes on persons' constitutional right of freedom of association? Do you agree then? Because it's
yes,
almost
I
similar.
agree. I totally agree. And that's
also, you support the president asking for an amendment then?
Yeah. It's not that, like I said earlier, that of course the president can ask for an amendment, as long as the proper procedure is followed. And that's what I was saying, that yes, the provision is there. Yes, until it is amended, it becomes the law. But the truth of the matter is that that provision will still be challenged in court because it will violate the provision of the Constitution as to right to freedom of association. And I think that is why the president is now asking for amendment. But like I said earlier, that why can't you allow the law to take effect? Let's see how practicable it is. And if there is any agreement, you can go to court and ask for striking down of a particular provision. And of course, the provision of that law violates and contravenes the provision of the Constitution. And to the essence of that inconsistency, it is null and void.
Okay. Well, let me ask Mr. Ono on this same issue. I know it's a little dicey, when one looks at some of these issues sometimes. But look at this against the backdrop of the election that held at the FCT where you are recently, where a political party won, but there was no one to give the votes to on behalf of the political party. There was no one to return as a candidate or as winner of the election, even though the political party won. It would seem like this provision, this judgment, raises an issue that has been raised severally. And as you mentioned, there have been precedents. So in a case where a party wins and there is no one to return, and now someone defects from a party into another party, I don't know. It's a conundrum or an irony, if you like, or isn't it?
Well, my brother, the hypothetical scenario you painted now is an impossible one. When it happens, I'm sure it will certainly create a shock. But on the issue that we're discussing, there is a moral and legal issue about defection. And the judgment of the Federal High Court regarding Ebonyi State has established one thing, if nothing, that Nigerians don't want their elected officials jumping from one party to the other, because a lot of people welcomed that decision. So as a member of PDP, I am part of the plaintiff. So I would say that we have won already a moral victory, even if the legal aspect of it is still before the court. So I would not be making comments as a party in this litigation that will be considered prejudicial to it. But one thing I'd like to say is that we seem to have forgotten that this judgment was not just about the governor. There is also an important judgment about the members of the House of Assembly in Ebonyi State. And I do not think that the appeal and the application for stay that was filed yesterday included the State House of Assembly members who have been vacated. So I am free to talk about their case, the House of Assembly members.
What should happen in that instance right now?
Now I'm going to also be calling on the National Assembly as they make this constitution amendment to also try and resolve this unnecessary controversy by bringing into the constitution provisions like what we have in section 68 1G and 109 1G of the constitution, which clearly states that when a member of the National Assembly or State House of Assembly moves to another party other than that party in which he was elected, he shall vacate his seat. That one is clear. So they should do that for president, vice president, governor, and deputy governor, so that the issue will be put to rest once and for all. Whatever happens at the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, I think the National Assembly ought to consider that, because it will make Nigerians happy, right? Now, for the Ebonyi State House of Assembly, the judgment is effective that they have vacated their seat. The Constitution is clear on that. So you find that it's not a matter of controversy.
So what should happen to their seats
They are not members as it is right now. Mm-hmm. They are not members as it is right now. This decision, mind you, is a declaratory judgment. It's not an election petition matter, for which there is absolute jurisdiction to challenge the defection of the House of Assembly members. And once the court declares that their seat is vacant, they must comply and then appeal from outside. So as it is now, the 8 members in the Ebonyi State House of Assembly have a right to elect among themselves new leadership. I say 8 members because there were 16 who started attending APC activities, carrying APC flag, carrying broom in Ebonyi State. One of them recently came and said, I have never cross-carpeted on the floor of the House, so I'm still a member of PDP. That is not a requirement in the Constitution. The Constitution did not say you should cross-carpet on the floor of the House. All it said is that being elected as a member of a party, you are no longer the member of that party. You vacate your seat. So how do we say you're no longer a member of a party? The moment we see you fraternizing with another party, carrying their banner, carrying their flag, you are no longer a member of our party.
Well, some people will say you have to actually have a formal defection.
There is nothing like that in the Constitution. The moment you identify with another party, you are no longer a member of the party that elected you. So if you want to become a member of the party that elected you, you have to come back and identify. But based on the constitution, you ought to have vacated that seat.
Okay.
And then if you're coming back to your party, you have to go and contest election again to come back. So Ebonyi State House of Assembly, as it stands now, only have 8 members. And those members can elect new leadership among themselves. This matter is not controversial at all. You can see that all the lawyers who have been speaking for or against the decision of the Federal High Court have actually not gone into this issue because it is settled.
Okay. Well, we'll see whether that's the last word we'll hear on that particular matter, but we certainly know that the governor of Ebonyi has now appealed the judgment of Justice Inyangekwo, and it will be left to see how the Court of Appeal decides. So we have to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program this morning. Thank our guest, Mr. Dauda Arioshu, who's an associate professor, Faculty of Law in the University of Ilorin. He joined us via Zoom from Ilorin in Kwara State. Thank you so much for coming on. And Mr. Silas Onu, who is also a legal practitioner and a member of the People's Democratic Party. Thank you also for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you, Margaret.
Well, we'll take a break now and we'll be back to talk about the security situation in the country. Please stay with us.
See, we're turning our attention to the all-important issue of security. And this morning, we're joined by Mr. Oyekachi Adekoya, security consultant. He's right here with us in our Lagos studio. And we're expecting Mr. Derule Shinaba, who's the former AIG Zone 4 headquarters, former CP Adamawa FCT Abuja, and Kano, as well as former commandant Police Academy Woodhill in Kano State. We expect he will join us via Zoom this morning. But let's start off with Mr. Adekoya. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program. Yeah. You know, a lot of people thought the security issues went away, but clearly not. And first, they were jolted to reality by the killing of the vigilantes just early in the week, over 60 of them. And, you know, I saw the video, and it was heart-wrenching. It was sad in all angles. And just yesterday again, yet another attack, this time on the deputy governor of Kebbi State. We had soldiers dying, policemen dying, vehicles burned, and this looks like an onslaught. I mean, we're used to getting onslaughts on bandits. We hear those reports, what, 200 killed over a period of time, but it looks like the act or the script has flipped now. The onslaught is on security operatives, and that's on the back of the GTI, which says we have improved. So putting all of this together, what do you make of this?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I saw the report by GTI. I wonder where they get their data from. It will be interesting to interrogate their data set. Maybe also they have not taken into cognizance the fact that we declared bandits officially as terrorists. So even if they were reading activities only in the northeast, even that also looks like a fair underestimation of what's really happening there, because soldiers die every day in the northeast. You see reports of soldiers killed in action, wounded in action. Civilians also get killed and sometimes get caught in a crossfire in the northeast. It is right that that report says that they noticed a downward reporting of incidents by Boko Haram because, of course, Shekaro was ousted, and now you have ISWAP being the dominant player now in the northeast. I'm just trying to dimension the report a bit before I come to the other part of the question. And so now if you notice, very early last year into late last 2 years ago, swaths of Kanuri youths were denouncing their membership of Boko Haram because basically what is now happening there has gone beyond a local youth cult-like insurgency to now having foreign machineries, entrenched trained fighters with transnational networks in the Lake Chad and the whole Sahel region. So if GTI is reporting a reduction in Boko Haram activities, there's no rocket science there. But I think that report also doesn't cover activities in the northwest, which is where Kebbi comes to play. And if you recall, over last year, while Kebbi was in the middle of the insurgency in the northwest, Kebbi seemed a bit isolated from the happening, particularly when you look at what's happening in Katsina, Zamfara, Kaduna. Kebbi and Kano were almost like the bright spots in that northwest axis. So it just looks as though that over time the chicken has come home to roost somewhere in Kebbi. So Kebbi is no longer the sleeper state it used to be. The fear now is that Kano is beginning to join the fray. Kaduna is completely awash with incidents. 2 weeks or last week, the Kaduna State government put out an alert that there's a new threat of IED because there were 2 reported incidents of IED explosions in quick succession that jolted almost everybody in Kaduna. So Kaduna, we receive reports every day of people being killed, kidnapped, soldiers killed, and the rest. That GTI report doesn't also give a fair estimate of what's happening. To come to the issue of law enforcement being killed, people die. Law enforcement die every day in the southeast, in the south-south. There's practically no part of this country where policemen and soldiers don't die maybe on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. So that's the sadness about the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria.
You know what's also quite instructive, and just to follow up on that point you made about security operatives, is that the report actually said attacks against police and prisons increased substantially.
Yes.
In fact, the report, while it said that the deaths dropped, the attacks increased.
Yes.
And that's throughout Nigeria. But regarding this, Kebbi particularly, I'd like us to speak to the recent ones. Kebbi, and they say it's the border between Kebbi and Niger State. Kebbi is a northwestern state. Niger is a north-central, as it were. And you've said that Kebbi seemed a little bit like the bright spot, Kebbi and Kano. And I recall that the governor of Kaduna had said that, there should be simultaneous bombardment of these bandits, such that as they're being displaced from, let's say, Kaduna, they probably want to move to a neighboring state. They're also being displaced or bombarded at that point, and we have that bombardment. And I think he mentioned a sixth state, either in north central or the northeast. But the point is, it would seem as though they're being displaced and they have maybe moved to Kebbi, which is perhaps a cold spot for them. Would that be a plausible explanation for the recent onslaught we're seeing?
Not at all. That's a reactionary explanation. If you do a deep dive into what's causing that movement, they fanned out from the northeast.
That's where terrorism is originally.
Yes, so what you're seeing now, it's a combination of 2 factors. There's a transnational network in that Sahel region. There's crisis in Mali coming down, affecting the northwest. Okay? Then you had entrenched criminal groups. Forget about the terrorism they call themselves. They are all armed criminal groups because at the heart of the activity is economic interest. Now, they found out from the northeast when the onslaught of the military became very hard on them when this Buhari, when Buhari administration came to place. So we've seen a reduction in bomb blasts and some of these overt attacks and the rest. So because of the onslaught, they had to fan out to set up new territories. Now, at the time they were moving into the northwest, already in the northwest, you had issues of armed banditry and cattle rustling. Cattle rustling was the major issue. By the time these elements came, mixed up with the other elements, of course, they had some infightings. Those infightings are still going on. You then had other people fan out a bit more into the north-central axis. When you look at the forest regions between Niger, Zamfara, Kaduna axis, and even coming to Abuja. Abuja is not spared, the remote communities in Abuja. So there is this movement of these elements into new territories to set up shop for themselves. That's what's driving the movement. And that's why, if you recall, last year, the Niger State governor came out to raise an alarm that they have hordes of terrorists in Niger State.
But you can't rule out the current onslaught, as it were, as also responsible for that movement.
So it's movement. It's all, the point I'm making is, yes. So the military is currently engaged in operations in over 31 states in Nigeria. This limited military with limited resources that we have. We have now a domesticated military. We cannot even project force or power in West Africa because the military has become over-domesticated. The knock-on effect is that the police force or police service or police force, as our constitution calls them, has also become domesticated because over 50, 60%, 50 maybe averagely, moderately, 50% of the force that the police has is now protecting private interests, VVIPs, and the rest. So you have soldiers now overstretched. If you hit them in Kaduna and you hit them in Katsina, of course they will move and they will fan out and they will come to new territories, set up shop again. It becomes a reaction. That's why I said the analysis is quite reactionary. What is driving the movement is the fact that our national security setup is playing catch-up. We are not set up to be proactive. We cannot even take the initiative. The insurgents, the criminal elements have the initiatives as it is today.
And all we do is react.
That's just, so you will, tomorrow now or next, you will hear the IGP sending a crack force to Kebbi. You will hear the military set up a new operation in Kebbi. So then attention goes to Kebbi. But what's happening in Kaduna? Every day.
My apologies.
Yes, please.
You've spoken to the GTI.
Yes.
You've also spoken to some of the issues that are at home. And it would seem like you're saying maybe GTI doesn't really have some home data that they should have. That's what you're saying?
Correct. They lack local knowledge.
So where then does their data come from?
If you reference that report, they've said from ONSIT, that's open source information.
Okay.
That's what you call open source intelligence. Okay. They've gotten everything open source. And recall also that there's a bit of a media blackout over some of these reportings and activities. A lot of issues are currently underreported.
Now, where I'm going with this line is a reference to what the governor of Sokoto State also said, that they are aware, they're not unaware, that informants are collaborating with bandits to get some things done, to foster some unrest, some attacks on communities. So I don't know, where would you put that? Is that also reactionary? Because just as you said, it's not unknown that these people fan out, as you have said, by the local communities. And the expectation, the appeal by security forces, including the president and even some governors, is let people give information to security agencies. But we've also seen what comes out of that sometimes. You give information to security agencies, the bandits react, so to speak. So I don't know what you make of all of this now. So on the one hand, are the attacks?
Yes.
On the other hand, the people who are in the middle of it sometimes give information to bandits as opposed to giving information to security agencies. And then, I don't know, what are we going to do?
I think I'll try and provide some context so that we understand when politicians are trying to play on the intelligence of the people. The DSS has operatives in all the local governments in Nigeria, the 774 local governments in Nigeria. The DSS has assets on ground. Even in Dikwa, or Mafa, or Puka, or different places, what you call deep field locations, they have eyes, ears on the ground. So I disagree that intelligence is the problem. We have the NIA. The military has its own intelligence unit. The police has its own intelligence unit. The customs has its own intelligence unit. The NSCDC has its own intelligence unit. So intelligence is not a problem. I think that people are trying to insult our intelligence to say that intelligence is the problem. Intelligence is not a problem.
What then is the
Because they have actionable intelligence.
I think the question here is
the
compromise that happens. So you have informants, and I think it was the attacks on the vigilantes. One of the accounts says, the vigilantes wanted to attack the bandits, as it were, just, spring up on them. But it looked as though the bandits got word of that planned attack, so they sprung up on them first. And that was, so this is compromised intelligence, not a lack of intelligence.
What you're explaining now is what we'll call counterintelligence.
Right.
So we don't give, and I don't want to be quoted out of context. You are dealing with a highly militarized setup, okay? These ragtag bandits, as you want to call them, have intelligence. So while you are building intelligence on them, they also have assets. They have HOMIT, they have human intelligence also. So while our military drives out on a fighting patrol, they sometimes fly blind. But the insurgents have, once you see troop movement, because we are regimented, once you see troop movement, they get heads up. Why do you think the ambushes that occur every now and then, there's a website where these people publish attacks against the Nigerian state. So every time you move out in any formation, in some of those communities, they also have human intelligence. So it's all counterintelligence. I'm saying we have intelligence, they have the intelligence, but you look at intent and capability.
Okay. I want to take this to...
Sorry, Gadi.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so they have intelligence, we have intelligence. Now, and you talked about actionable intelligence
Yes.
the other time. What then is the shortfall?
What is missing is capability.
On the part of who?
Local, you see, that's why we come back
Capability
again.
on whose part?
On the part of the way we have set up. We are playing a David and Goliath fight. The insurgents in this case would be the David. The Nigerian state, with all its federal might and posture and everything, would be the Goliath. But the initiative is with the insurgents because they can explore spaces and places. In security, you have to look at space and place. So we have a very large expanse of land to cover. We are spread thin. We cannot be everywhere. It's like when the military had the super camp strategy and they had the forward operating bases. So what they tried to do with the forward operating bases was to spread out and have those forward operating bases closer to the action and cut off the supply line of the insurgents, you know, and then take the initiative to them. But when you have those FOB strategy, you must also have close air support or a non-standoff precision munition to be able to provide support to those troops you have put in the front lines and then give them response or give them cover. So we don't have the required resources or the tooling to effectively cover the entire landmass of Nigeria. These people have local knowledge of the terrain. They have local knowledge of the community. These are community people in some cases with a very well-entrenched value chain. There are people who supply fuel, who supply them food, who supply them information, who supply them all sorts of things, even within the community. So we are dealing with this matter with kids' glove.
I don't think, just as you said earlier, I don't think it's because we don't have this information.
Yes.
Government has this information.
And should have.
I expect that government has. I mean, you would tell us here from time to time that every governor or even the president, they always receive...
yes, they receive weekly, monthly briefing.
Security reports and
Yes.
all of that. So it's not that these things are not known. So then the question is, what are we supposed to do to get ahead of them? I remember a number of times the military, the police, even some of these politicians that you talked about the other time said they have been able to identify that poverty, hunger, unemployment are some of the reasons that these things happen. So what then is wrong in getting ahead of these things by making these things go away?
You know, I've come to a point in my own thinking about Nigeria that sometimes I used to be quite bothered, but I think that the lack of knowledge, the crass level of ignorance within the political class is our problem. Look at the police reform act that they were trying to push. Why did they stop it? For selfish reasons. The lawmakers said they don't want to make the governors become demigods by giving them state police. Because if the governor has a political opponent, he can, with the state police, put that political opponent out of business. That's the only reason. That's the only reason this set of wonderful human beings have given as to be the reason why we cannot have state police. Not because they've not cited lack of resources. They've not cited security issues. The core reason they give, politics.
And it would seem at the expense of
security,
as it were.
Security. And that's why, sorry, just to come back, I say, when you have actionable intelligence and you don't have capability and capacity on the ground to deal with that information, your intelligence is useless.
Well, we've seen office holders, I mean, being attacked as well. I talked about the deputy governor of Kebbi State who was attacked, and he, talked about it. Sadly, we had soldiers and policemen who were killed during that attack. I'll be honest with you, I looked at the map, the GTI map, and I realized that there are actually countries around Nigeria that have not been impacted at all by terrorism. Let me just mention, we have Ghana, Congo, countries that are just maybe a country away from Nigeria, and you would expect that they will be affected as well. And I thought, what is peculiar about, what are the peculiarities of those countries? And I realized that population is one of them. These countries are perhaps smaller. And I think it maybe comes to the point you were making about Goliath, the setup being heavy and huge. Try to break it into bits. Do you think perhaps we should reconsider that state police bill in the Constitution Amendment? Do you think that will help us to set up in smaller parts so we can handle, because you hear ungoverned spaces and you think, wait a minute, these people have governors, they're not ungoverned as it were, so we're set up too big as it were. What will it take to consider, readjustments, state police or what have you?
Yeah, so firstly, we've also identified the fact that we're a nation set up to over-administrate, okay, and the focus is down on administration, no longer on the people. Yeah. So we have local government chairmen who, by law, are actually the chief security officers of their local governments. Some of them don't even reside in their local governments. Some local government offices are not operational until when they come to share location, and then they close shop and they go. I served in some very remote parts of this country. Okay? So when there is no governance, nature abhors a vacuum. In some places, the people pay tax to return to their farm. We've seen instances where these people write to communities and say, pay this money, otherwise you'll be attacked. And in some communities, they outright pay. And let's not think that this happens only in the north. Even in Ogun State here, there are some remote communities in Ogun North that are having these running issues. The Bales are having to confront some of these issues. And when you cited some of these neighboring states around us, countries, it's not absolutely true that they don't have their issues. Ghana has its own issues in its northern region. Cameroon has its own issues in its northern region. Chad has issues. Niger has issues.
Ghana,
Congo, even Ghana is also having some of these issues. The Congo is not absolutely immune. Even Kenya, if you look at the reports coming from Kenya, Kenya is facing the same type of incidents we're experiencing currently now in the north. So it's a sub-Saharan issue, but something coming from the Sahel region, from that Eritrea to Ethiopia belt, affecting states coming down. So it's a broader issue. The AU has to look at it. ECOWAS has to look at it, and we have to deal decisively with the issues in the Sahel. Okay? But coming down, every sensible emphasis, every sensible approach to security has to be local. Otherwise, it will fail. If you don't have the initiative at the local level, if you refuse to take command to the front lines where command is necessary, you will have actionable intelligence, but you'll be waiting for your state command. The state command will be waiting for the Abuja command. The person, the big man in Abuja may be in a meeting with the senator, may be in a meeting with the CEC, may be somewhere on one national assignment, and there's something needing urgent attention. And sometimes the people in the forces also need to read the body language of the public office holders to be sure whether to act or not to act. As an example, we find that when you have election cycles in Nigeria on the eve where you're going to have a major change, as we have now in 2023, crime seems to peak significantly. Some people argue that some of these politicians will say to law enforcement, let's taper down a bit on law enforcement activity and drive, because these are the people that we vote. Let's reduce a bit enforcement and something. So you find court activity, court clashes. Can you? Yeah, I said some reports will suggest.
Oh, I see.
I didn't say emphatically.
Well, you put it out there already.
Yeah, so no, I said some reports will suggest. And I wouldn't put my credential out there completely. But we have also been involved in providing security for some elections in Nigeria. So if you want to take me up on that, we can discuss off air. So some reports will suggest that. So you find that while you have local jostling, because you have these different rival gangs positioning for political patronage, who controls what territory and what, because it's all election season. So a lot of things happens during the eve of every election, and you need to go into the data bank to see that what I'm saying is right. So there's an uptick of violence because of election cycle. So that's happening on the one hand, and that may be the reason why we're seeing some of these crime statistics spike up.
So how do we better protect our law enforcement? Because looking at this GTI, which has been like one of the major crux of the conversation, you see that attacks on, security operatives have increased. And, sometimes you say security operatives, and you forget that they are actually, like you and I,
yes.
They have family members.
Yes.
And I mean, they chose to do that just to protect, perhaps to provide a means of livelihood for themselves, but ultimately to protect you and I. So how can we better protect them? I recall you said that about 50% of police men are now guarding private,
private interests
and all of that. I don't know if that's official
VIP,
from the police.
They are about plus or minus.
Is that an official position
Not
from
an
the
official
police?
position from the police, but if you look at some VIPs who have, some of them have almost 14, 16 policemen with them.
So how do we better protect them as we wind up?
Yeah, so unfortunately, again, I'm sure that the police should be happy that we're speaking up for them like this. They are like beggars in this instance. They have no choice because the law forbids them from protesting, from speaking up. So there's a lot of improvisation going on within the system. They give you an assignment to do, you have to, how you do it and how you get it done is your bloody problem.
Just get it done. Because
the system is also handicapped because there is still a hijack. The military has left power, but they've not left power because the military ideology is still there, where other forces and other arms are not giving the required attention they need because, resources scarce. And then we are competing, which explains why the military barracks always looks clean, prim and proper, as opposed to the police barracks. Just even a case in point, go to Obalende there. You see the nonsense we have there as a barracks for the police. And you put them in all sorts of rubbish conditions, forgive my language, and then you expect the best of them. The police force authority has been clamoring for resources, for weapons, for different munitions, and they are not getting it. So how they can't protest, they can't speak up, they can't speak out, they are the ones dying every day. They get shot in the line of duty. Families are practically on their own.
So what do we do to protect them?
Unfortunately, the people that we do something to protect them are the people in the House of Assembly.
So let's speak to them.
I can't speak to them. Nigerians should speak to them. I've said my own fair share. I mean, some members have to be recalled by their constituencies because what they are doing there is a shame and it's a sham. Some of them can't even go back to their constituencies. They are being attacked left, right, center, and we're all busy playing politics. So the truth about the matter in Nigeria is that, I mean, we need to quit all this senseless narrative and political narrative of OD. How is this thing any different? Some governors have taken over without state police, completely taking over structures of the party in their states without state police.
Clearly, this calls for, I don't want to say a rejigging, because that word has been abused a lot, but
it's a paradigm shift. We need to achieve a major paradigm shift and focus on ensuring local capacity building at the local levels.
Well, Mr. Oyekachi Adekoya, we have to thank you so much. I mean, you've proven quite insightful in this conversation. But Mr. Adekoya is a security consultant, and we wish we had Mr. Shinaba joining us via Zoom, but hopefully we'll do that some other time. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, it's come to that time where we would want to take your own comments, your own contribution to the program this morning. Let's begin with this one from Professor Anegbe Enakena, who says, to fix our insecurities, we must fix the economy. Our political elites must have national economic plan with policies and programs to alleviate poverty, reduce corruption, and enact humane policies to unlock the economic potential of our restive youths.
Well, this next one is from Festus Akimboyewa, saying the Senate's rejection of amending the new Electoral Act has bipartisan support and broad support among Nigerians. By the way, this is no more insecurity or securities, as it were. While our legislators inserted Section 84 to protect their political interests, resignation of government appointees will create a level playing field in our politics.
then Musa Aduwak says, talking about the Electoral Act amendment, I don't agree that occupying political offices are rights equivalent to fundamental human rights. Political appointees or political appointment are privileges and do not confer absolute rights, which may be abused if not allowed or taken away by any law. So it looks like it's more in support of what the Senate has done, and we'll see whether there will be more reactions in the days to come, how the president himself will receive that news. He's away in London now, we understand, for medical treatment. But we have to thank you for sending in your own contributions. We expect many more. Continue to engage with the handle showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. And Maokwe Ogun Yusuf, have a gorgeous day.
By the way, that 1 million women march is still on, you know, speaking of things that need to be done at the National Assembly. So we'll be bringing you more on that, as well as, you know, other major stories for the day. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Thank you for joining us.
Have a wonderful day. I'm Ayo Makine.